Hello everybody and welcome to today's IEP Live Learn Lunch. Really excited to be joined today by a fellow of the IEP, David Imber, who is joining us from the Good Employability Company, and he's going to be persuading us all to write for the IEP Journal. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand you over to David, and I hope you all enjoy the session.
Thank you, Helen, and everybody must give a big round of applause at any moment. Now is a good time, but the end also to Helen, who organises all these events so brilliantly well and makes it look calm and smooth and so professional, whereas in fact the poor person has to deal with idiosyncratic and disorganized people like me all the time, which must make her life a misery. So thank you in advance, Helen. That's great. A few months, well, no, lockdown, goodness me, a couple of years ago, some of us got our heads together over a little refreshment at the IEP summit, and we thought, wouldn't it be a great idea if the IEP as a professional organisation had its own journal? And bingo, here we are. We're approaching the 6th issue, and I mean, you know, all the previous 5 issues have been packed with interesting, informative and controversial sometimes articles. And the IEP would really very much like to encourage every member of every kind to contribute to the journal, because it is not a great big scientific journal where you've got to be Professor what's its name from the University of this and that to write in it. It's about you and us as a profession sharing our thoughts in a professional way. So fame and fortune await. You can make yourself notorious, you can make yourself infamous, or you can just get something off your chest or ask a question. We're a fairly informal kind of journal, although we've got some limits on and some standards to work to, but it is all about your input. So let's have the next slide. Enough of me advertising already. Oh, great. So what's in this journal? It's published in PDF form on the IEP website, and you can download it and have your very own copy, which is always nice to do. You know, if you need something to read to help you sleep at night, this is the way to go. We publish 3 or 4 times a year. We're not fussed particularly about dates, because we know that people have got their own timetables, and you know, we can't be too rigid about this kind of thing. And sorry to say, fame perhaps, fortune no, we don't pay contributors. They're all people who have something to say and want to say it for its own value. Now, the thing is, the journal is aiming to encourage the presentation of ideas and research. So if you've got a piece of research or a new idea, or even an old idea that you're rethinking or anything like that, you're the person to write for the journal. We also aim to encourage discussion. We don't get enough of that. We're often tied down with work, and you know, meetings tend to be rather formal events with narrow agendas. Well, the journal doesn't really have an agenda other than us, the professionals, and what we do. So you can start a discussion, or you can join one. You can put in your professional opinion and reflections. And that means you're perfectly at liberty to say that you think something is true or not. Of course, what you think doesn't actually make it true, but it's your professional opinion. And if you want to defend it in print, now's your chance. On the other hand, if you've got some research or an experiment that you've recently done, or a pilot program perhaps that you want to talk about, some evaluation you've been through, fabulous, because then you can say, we did this and it worked for this reason, and here's what worked, here's what didn't work. This is really important professional stuff to share. And that will bring with it, we hope and anticipate, a degree of innovation, technical advance, that many of you are at the cutting edge of delivering services, or certainly at the cutting edge of working out how services should be delivered. And we need to hear from you. The whole profession needs to hear from you. And once in a while, we're very lucky to have interviews with people from the profession. So far, they've by and large been leading figures in the sense that they hold a position where you'd expect them to have a lot to say. But it's equally important to hear from the front line, from the sharp edge, from where the ethical choices get turned into practical help for clients. So I'm just going to take a moment now for you. I want you to write down for yourself and use the chat what matters to you that you would like to read about or write about in the journal. I'm of course anticipating that in the next minute or two, we're going to get lots and lots of ideas for future articles. So what's the important thing for you at the moment?
So Catherine's asked, David, do interviewees need to be invited?
No, you're welcome to invite yourself or to volunteer, and that's the way we do it. If we get a complete flood of interviews, we'll probably have to spread you out over a number of issues. But it would be great to have some people say, please, I've got some ideas I'd like to share.
It really would, wouldn't it? That would be fantastic. So please do. Zaya, hope I pronounced that right. Will you be sharing this recording so I could send it to my contractors in London South, Coast to Capital and South East LEP? Yes, we share all of these recordings via our YouTube channel. So once it's up and loaded, what I'd suggest to everyone, I'll pop the link into chat later, pop over to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and then you have access to them and you can get shareable links, so that should be fine. Amelia says she would like to see sustainable employment and labour market insights.
Oh, fantastic. Everyone, well, yes, there's lots of publications on the labour market, but whether they count as insights is another matter, isn't it? Yes.
So Nigel has said, what is the value of coaching and workshops in the journey of the job search, or in the journey of job search?
Yes, coaching, really important. It's funny, I was looking at my bookshelf behind me here. I've got a really fantastic book on job coaching, which was written, I think, in Norway as many as past 15 years ago. I read it briefly. I thought, God, I wish I'd written that. But, you know, that's a really important one. Coaching and workshops, really significant. Nigel, you may be well on your way to volunteering the answer to your own question.
Definitely. So those are all the suggestions we've got so far. I'm sure they'll become brave. Oh, I've just seen another one. Suzanne says, I would like to see insights and provider experiences around access to work, pitfalls, challenges, and how other providers engage with access to work. I think, again, that would be key, wouldn't it?
That would be. We haven't had anything on access to work. And I know I'll be introducing Steve Hart. Is Steve with us? I don't know. He said he'd try and make it. Steve Hart is our editor for this edition. I know he's keen to see some emphasis on disability, not to exclude anything else, but disability and disability confidence is a theme he'd like to see followed up.
Yeah,
so access to work, Suzanne. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next. Keep the ideas coming. You know, you're not here to listen. You're here to type. I want you working. Come on. Let's look at the next slide. So what are we, in practical terms, what do we want to print? First off, keep the writing simple, direct, use active speech. Don't write things like, while we consider the possibility that may not previously have been thought of by ministers, we must nonetheless address contingencies which have yet to be included in our forward strategy. That kind of waffly waffle turns people off. What probably you should be saying is, where are we going next? Keep it simple. Writing in a professional journal, people tend to think they've got to be really straight-laced, buttoned up to the neck. Actually, a bit of good humour, or in my case, of course, it's usually curmudgeonly grouses and grumbles about the state of the world. But actually, good humour and anecdote and your own personality is welcome. So if you've got a writing voice that feels genuine to you, don't feel you've got to suppress it. Don't rush into technical terminology. I tried to think of an example, but access to work is one that we all know, but maybe some people don't know what access to work is when it has a capital A and a capital W. So be careful to explain any technical terms. And our very best writers, there aren't many of them, are really brief and to the point, and their stories have a logical step forward towards the conclusion at the end. And that's for anyone who's used to writing a lot, you'll recognize that I have chosen the word story carefully. If you can make it read like a story that has an intriguing beginning, deals with the complications in the middle, and reaches a conclusion in which the detective unmasks the culprit, you've done a good job. Always worth thinking of it as a story. And like yours truly, if you find you're rambling or putting in things that don't really matter but you're interested in, tell you what, we might just come back to you and say, do you really need that in there? So try not to overcook it. Any questions at this point? We've got more to come, of course, but questions?
No questions have come in at the moment. We did have a comment from Ellsworth around she'd be interested in an article to explore new methods of recruitment and, more importantly, embedding them in the recruitment practice. For example, working interviews. And she feels we need to move away from the trial by interview approach that historically has been taken, especially for people with learning difficulties.
Fantastic. Now that's an article waiting to be written, isn't it? There is a proposition that we need to move away from trial by interview. What a great opening line.
Yes.
And you can build an argument around that, relate it to people with learning difficulties, and reach a conclusion and leave that up to you. What a fantastic notion. Great. Look forward to reading that one. You see, there's no escape, is there, Helen?
There is none, no.
There's no way out once you.
I do, you know what, I really do like the idea of that one, and I think the access to work. I've got all of this in the chat, and we will be following up on all of these because they do sound fantastic. Excellent. Shall I move on to the next slide?
Do please. I talk too much. We'll be here till the day after tomorrow. Just to give you an idea, some of the things from previous issues. Lockdown silver linings. That was lovely. It was how lockdown has actually helped people do a better job rather than finding all the difficulties. That was superb. Setting up your team for success made me scratch my head a lot, that article, because, well, you'll have to read it and decide for yourself. Using technology to improve mental health of unemployed individuals. So that was very topical, especially with our reliance on things like Zoom. So you can see from this list that it really is a broad field of interest. You don't need to feel constrained that you've got to stick to one theme. Spread it about a bit. The last on the list I really found very interesting. It was the only case where we've broken our word limit because the quality of the research and evidence presented was extremely high. And that was about which places in the UK have the highest levels of unemployment, persistently have high unemployment, and what that might mean for delivery. So again, wide range. Now, what I've noticed is that some of our writers finish their title. I've just done something very silly with my screen. I don't know how to do that at all. There we are, that's better. They do their title last of all. So they write the whole thing, and at the end of it, they say, well, what's the title for that? And that's quite nice. Other people write the title straight away and then get to grips with the text. So here's your next exercise, please. Fingers on the keyboards, team. What is the title, or in 5 words, the message that you would like to get across?
We've got Ellsworth, so she's got a bit of a break here, hasn't she?
Yeah.
We liked that. Moving away from trial by interview is one. Phew, she says. Yes, I agree. He's put us on the spot there, as I warned you he would, but it's always great development. And I think it is key, isn't it, to think about what's the end of the journey? What do you want people to be thinking at the end of reading your article?
Yeah, 5 words. Come on.
That's a challenge.
It is a challenge, isn't it? But, if you can do that, if you can get it down to 5 words, believe me, it's much easier to then add all the text and the guff that makes it plausible. But if you do the guff and the text first, you try finding the right 5 words afterwards. It can be really quite tough. There we go.
Yeah, here you go. Nigel's done one. How to make data interesting.
Get in.
Excellent. Well done, Nigel.
Oh gosh. Are there any other people in the room this morning who are data hounds like me? I love reading data, but other people hate it, don't they?
I think people always think they hate it, and then you find something that catches your interest, and you can't stop, don't you? When it's relevant data, when it's data that means something to you, it changes it, doesn't it? When it's just statistics that are meaningless, it's boring. But every now and then you come across something, and all of a sudden it just changes a whole perspective.
And it really helps you to think things through and get a handle on your ideas. Data matters. Great. Let's move on to the next slide. Mind you, I'm not going to let you all get away with not typing very much in your chat boxes. Terrible it is. There are prizes awarded for this. Can't think what they are. But, so let's be practical for a bit. Articles that you write should be somewhere between 500 minimum, more or less, and a maximum of 1,500 words. Now, that's not a lot. It's about 3 pages of A4 in a kind of normal typeface. Nearly everybody writes too much. So one of the editorial jobs is to help them be a bit briefer, a bit more succinct and to the point. But that's all right. That's what we're here for. We're not here to beat you about the head for writing 2 words too many. We're here to help you refine and hone. We do go over occasionally. The article about the distribution of unemployment in the UK was an example of that, because it was unusually well argued. But don't count on it. Be brief, be persuasive. I'm sure you can. After all, if you've got clients on your caseload, you know all about brief and persuasive. Any questions on this?
No, but we have another title. Catherine has come up with How to Prevent Digital Isolation. Another great one. Oh,
wow. Catherine, that's really great, because wherever I look right now, I see people saying, oh, digital is the answer, and what wonderful stuff computers are and how they're going to make everything so much easier. But actually, how to prevent digital isolation, what an interesting topic. Looking forward to reading that one, Catherine. Great. Now that's fantastic. Now we also have a letters section. And letters are even harder to write because we have a limit of 300 words on those, and it really isn't much. You need to distill your thinking and focus on the message in letters really strongly. So what are they about? Well, dear editor, it's still raining in Devon, but we're hoping it'll stop before summer. No, They want mainly to be about previous articles, new idea you might have that you want to share. A letter might be the place to share an idea if it's not yet ready for a full article. So you might say, I've been thinking about, I don't know what, preventing digital isolation, and I'd like to talk to people. Or I think we should do it this way. What do other people think? So they are, it's pretty broad again. Keep it on the professional topics, but keep it short. We don't want letters saying, I need to recruit 40 new advisors. Please, will you send your name and address to the following? We don't want letters saying our service is the best in the world because we think it's the best in the world. There's quite enough of that on people's websites without us adding to it. And we do add the author's name and where they come from at the end. But if you've got something to say and for good reason you think, I don't want my name attached, provided we know who wrote it, so it's a genuine letter, not some piece of fraudulent whatnot, we will make an anonymous publication. And do, by all means, add your email or even phone number if you're feeling bold. Get your responses directly from readers. The IEP doesn't have the resources to act as a channel for communication, so we need to get people talking directly with each other. More questions? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Am I talking you into submission? I can't.
They're all coming up with their titles. That's what it is, David.
I believe you have.
They're probably writing their articles as we speak.
Well, that would be good. Let's look at the next slide. So, yes, start now. Give yourself plenty of time to write it. It takes, unless you're a really, really experienced author, and I dare say you are, great, but start now. You haven't got as long as you think you've got. Don't wait till the last week to write an article. I like to start by mapping out the main ideas, and I've learnt that because I used to just start writing. I'd get a brilliant resonant phrase in my head and I'd write it down, and off would come the prose. And then when I looked at the end of the first page, I thought, I've forgotten what I'm saying here. Bit like now, really. So get your main ideas down first, I think, and gather your evidence if you need to. You know, you might be quoting from anywhere, really. It could be the book of Deuteronomy for all I know, or it might be the government statistical service. Gather those, have them to hand, and do a draft. Now, a draft can be just about anything you want. Scribble with a pencil, draw doodles, draw mind maps, and whatever works for you. Don't feel you've got to do it any particular way. And if it isn't working, scrap it and do something else. Be yourself. Really important to be yourself. It will show in the quality. Then take a deep sigh, large cup of tea, and sleep on it. Amazing how a fresh morning makes your brilliant resonant phrases of the night before seem a little bit tawdry, and you can polish. The more you polish, the better it gets, is a rule of writing. Take time and ask yourself, if I was reading this for the very first time, is it easy? Is it clear? Is it logical? Don't be afraid to use your personal red pen on your own writing. It's always great to do it. So your next exercise to keep your fingers busy on the keyboard is to write down, preferably in chat, but you might prefer to just do it on a post-it note or in the notebook you've got by your side. Well, I have. Here it is. Yeah, here's mine. Write down, what I want to say is, Finish that sentence. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's yours. And we can, any questions so far? How are we doing for time? We're all right.
Yep, we're fine for time. I can see people thinking hard about what they might like to say in an article. And I guess one of the things that people can do if they haven't already had chance is revisit some of the articles and read them, can't they? It's a really good way of sort of it firing you up and getting you to think about what might be something that you would like to talk about.
Yeah, quite right, Helen, quite right. There's a lot in the previous articles and a lot that's quite provocative, really. I don't think people wrote to provoke you. They write what they believe to be true. And that's always a cause for thought, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So what I want to say is, anyone writing, or are you just thinking, oh?
I think people are thinking. I think it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
It is.
I think they're worried we're going to pin them down and make them write these articles. It's not binding, is it, David?
Oh, well, no, I mean, if you find your fingers have been nailed to the notebook, I'm going to disclaim all responsibility. No, of course, it's not binding. Would asking rather than telling be an approach, says Nigel? Yeah, it would. Asking a question is every bit as good as telling people the answer. Yeah. And the challenge there is to make the question so pertinent and well phrased that people are able to produce answers that somehow do what you want them to do.
Yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it, when writing, when you ask a question, it allows you to explore different approaches, doesn't it, as part of your writing. So you can ask a question and you can share the approaches you're aware of, but also ask if there's others out there. So it just gives you that freedom, doesn't it, to explore. Yeah,
absolutely. And asking the right question is quite tough. It really is. You might say, for example, does my program work to get people into work? That sounds like a really good, sensible question. But when you start to pick apart the information you need to answer that question, it suddenly gets much more complicated. Like, does my program work to help people who really need the help? Or does my program speed up people getting into work? Or does my program improve the wages that people get when they get work? So asking questions is a significant thing for any professional, really up for that.
Excellent.
Elsewith, hello, you got distracted. Well done. Welcome to the world of writing. Distraction is the name of the game. The exercise is for you to write down on your notebook or in chat what I want to say is, and finish the sentence off. Yeah. Let's go to the next slide while you're working on those things. Oh, I enjoyed writing this slide because I have so many examples of bad writing to choose from. And I thought, who am I going to insult most by including them as an example? And in the end, I thought, come on, be sensible, David. The bad sentence at the top is one that I wrote for a presentation to DWP. It's deliberately about as bad as they come. And just take a moment to read that. You see that?
Yeah.
It's got, hasn't it? It's got all the marks of really weak thinking. because it's replaced what it is trying to say with a series of emotional words that convey a vague sense that we're involved in some kind of military attempt to do something about demons. Yeah, or going to war. Okay, you're absolutely right. Flap and fill. Well done. It's awful, isn't it? And yet, what's interesting about that bad sentence is that it contains the concept of a military attack on a demonic problem. Now, if instead you said, I wish to compare quality to a military attack on demons, that's a good sentence because you're owning the comparison. You're saying this is a way of thinking. So what you're doing when you write bad sentences ain't necessarily bad, but it's got to be unpicked in some way to make it easy for the reader. And my improvement to that sentence, improving performance needs various methods and understanding, blah, 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 is about a quarter the length. Much better, but it's still pretty rough writing, isn't it? I mean, it's clumsy, it doesn't read well. It needs smoothing out of the rough edges. What's Mariam saying there, Helen?
Right, we've got a what I want to say is that getting clients for my business is somewhat similar to engaging participants in my caseload.
Wow. Now, what an opening line. That is fantastic, isn't it? Because, now, you see, I need to know straight away, what's a client? What's your business? Who are your participants and what's your caseload? That's like the beginning of a detective story. It captures you, doesn't it?
It does. I was thinking those questions myself, so it draws you in straight away, doesn't it?
Yeah. And if you can have 1,500 words, 3 pages to answer those questions and your own question that you're posing, wow, that's fantastic. Go for it. Go for it. So keep it simple, keep it straight, be truthful, be personal, use the evidence, don't be frightened to say, I read that, or my statistics tell me that. It's good stuff. And be interesting, as Mariam has been her suggestion in the chat box there. Questions, please. I'm all ears, eyes.
I think they're enjoying your pearls of wisdom at the moment, David.
Pearls of wisdom. Ha, ha. Yes, pearls of wisdom. I'll let you know if I find one. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Okay, some things we don't want. By the way, apologies to anyone who is averse to clip art or has an allergy to it. I think the words I use are so dull that I have to spend my time looking up things to illustrate with. We don't take advertising, and if your article looks like it's advertising, we'll have a word behind the bike sheds to remind you about that. Obviously, avoid allegations against people. If you can't support what you say, it's wise to avoid attacks of all kinds, but even veiled allegations are a bit iffy. Party political and blaming, well, an article which says that the red and green spot party has destroyed the industry in the last 30 years, whereas the blue and yellow spot party is going to transform it into a heaven of untold harps and clouds and all that. We don't want that kind of stuff. Leave that to the politicians. Don't accuse anyone of anything. That a journal is a public document. It's not a private or a legal thing at all. I've written unsupported opinion. Well, it's on the whole not wise to just say what you think. But if you do have an opinion and it's strongly held and it's genuinely yours, you need to own it. Say, I think, and try then to say, here's why. Whereas if you just say, well, I believe that we're the best thing since sliced bread, I'd take you to a sliced bread factory and say, go on, beat that. You know, you've got to live up to your own assertions. We don't publish simple information like, you know, lists of what's on next week or what's happening in the latest government program, because you can get that elsewhere much better. And we don't publish CVs and do too much in the way of self-promotion. That's kind of advertising, really. So watch out for those. They can always slip in when you're not watching your own writings. Next one. Yeah, we're nearly there. It's going to be a short lunch break. Great. We're here to help. We really are here to help. For people who are used to writing, all this is totally straightforward. And for people who are not used to writing or don't have much time, it can be quite a challenge. So we really are here to help. In spite of all the stuff I've been saying about what's good and what you shouldn't do, if we get a draft and you say, I'm not sure if this is all right, we'd be thrilled to help you. There's a guide for authors available from the IEP, Helen, somewhere, isn't it?
Yes, and we can send it out as well if anyone wanted to.
Oh.
It's available via the website, but if someone wants to email me direct, I will get that direct to their inboxes. Okay,
I'm happy to do the same, and I will put my email address in the chat in a moment when I get enough brain space to type and talk. So that's only about 4 pages long, and it says the kind of stuff we've been talking about today. Take your time. Even the best writers, in fact, the very best writers, stop and think and rewrite and change stuff. So don't feel that it's got to come out perfect first time. Yeah. And we do want your ideas and thoughts. We had an absolutely fabulous article in the last issue that was written by someone with quite severe dyslexia, and the editor absolutely rightly help them get the spelling right and get the grammar right and do all of that stuff. We're here to do that. Don't worry about it. There is no perfect style. And don't feel you've got to write more than you need. So ask for help, send a draft as early as possible. Stop now to type my email address, in case anyone wants to follow up there. Questions? More questions?
Not at this stage, no. Lots of tips. David, you're worrying too much. When we get lots of tips, we need time to think about them and make notes. So I think that is exactly what people.
I think the back row of the classroom needs chalk throwing at it. Far too quiet. I'm deeply suspicious. Some awful practical joke is being prepared for teacher. Let's move on, Helen. So, how it works. Tell us you want to write. Hooray! Be great. Our guest editor is Steve Hart of Ingeus. I think he's the CEO of Ingeus. And there's his email address. He gave me permission to put it in. Careful, David. Yep. So you can write to Steve. I've put my email address. You can write to me too. Look at the previous issues. They're on the IEP website. So where are we? We're in February. So this month, submit your article in draft. You'll get feedback and suggestions from the editor. You'll be able to do revisions, send them back or whatever. An interesting thing nobody's yet done, I'm itching for one like this, is for an article to be put forward for review, anonymous review by peers in the business. So if you've got something you think is really interesting, worthwhile, new, novel, or a bit of research, or a new good practice, or something of that kind you want to write about, and you'd like the opinion of 2 or 3 of your peers, we can arrange for that to be done. And that is a great boost to the quality of publications and the standing of the journal itself. So, but it's voluntary. Don't feel you've got to. End of this month, when March comes around, your work should be pretty nearly complete. And with it, you need to put in your very short pen picture of yourself. I mean, how long is it, Helen? 5 small lines at the most. And a bit of a mug shot.
Yeah. And your favourite picture of yourself. That's the one everybody always loves, isn't it? The headshot that we ask for. Nobody enjoys that.
Nobody enjoys it, but it does bring the journal to life, doesn't it?
It does, yes. Well, that's true, actually. Some people take fantastic photos and don't mind at all. I, however, hate every photo that was ever taken of me. So, yeah. Whereas
I only ever published photos that were taken at least 40 years ago.
Excellent.
Within 2 weeks of publication, your work should be completely finished. You should be feeling very happy and proud, anticipating it coming out, and all the proofreading and layout starts. And the fabulous Heather gets onto that. Raluca, Harvard referencing for journal articles. Not necessarily. We are not precious about what kind of referencing. You can use whatever enables a reader quickly to find the reference you've got in front of you. We don't have an absolutely rigid style for those.
That's good to know. I know every single time I've ever had to submit work that's need to be referenced, it drives me mad using Harvard references every time. And it does. I understand why it needs to be done, but it's a pain, isn't it, when you try and get things done?
It's a dreadful pain. I've even got some software that says it can do it, and it doesn't. It's
oh dear.
You get it. Just have no. All we want is to know where you got your data, and can we have a look at it as well.
Excellent. Good.
Zaya, thank you for your message there. That's lovely. Let's move on. We're nearly done, actually, aren't we? That's how it works. Technical stuff. Microsoft Word compatible, please. Any photos or diagrams, keep them really simple. It's going to be printed on A4. You're going to be constrained by the column sizes, so don't go in for anything with a lot of detail. We can put a company logo at the top or bottom, but they'll be tiny, so make sure they're the right ones. We don't have big headings. Inside your article, you'll probably have titles and headings of subsections. Make them obvious for us, but don't use fancy layouts for them, because they just have to get taken out and it causes problems. So no special formatting or coloring. Don't use I know you've all got wonderful house styles that match your emails and your websites and everything else. Don't want it. It's going to get taken out. Password protect, well, don't. And everybody forgets, but it's really good practice to include your name and date in the properties of the file. That's your proof. It's not very strong, but it's proof of ownership, and it's right for you to have that ownership. Next again, please. Okay, you get to keep the copyright. You agree to give us the right to be quoted as the publisher. Not a big deal, we hope. We do not reprint articles from other sources without the permission of the source. So if you've got a fantastic article that was printed in Nature last month and you want us to reprint it, you're going to have to get permission from Nature. Must be your own work, please. disclose your sources and citations, and that doesn't mean pages and pages and pages, just the important ones to support your article. We don't have too much space to play with. If you've got a competing interest or some reason why you should be biased, do by all means say so. It adds terrific professional weight to your opinions if you admit to any conflicts of interest. Polite and no defamation. Well, we're all professionals, aren't we? We do include your name and your provenance, contact emails, etc. And so provide those with your documents. You will get pokes in the ribs, nudges and needles in the eyeballs if you don't provide them in time. And a very brief personal history we've mentioned. So that's about it. Just one other remark, which is that I personally was thrilled to discover this photo of a typewriter, because it is the very model that my mother used when she was a translator. And I was about 8 years old and used to go to it and think, what a wonderful machine, and learnt to type on it. Get on.
Do you know, I went into one of our local charity shops yesterday, the Seal Sanctuary charity shop, and they have one that looks just like that, and it's on sale for £20. And I didn't pay cash on me because I wanted to buy it for my 8-year-old, because she's been asking me what we did before computers. And I wanted to show her what I learned to type on. So if it's still there at the weekend, and I suspect it will be, I'm really tempted to buy it. And then I'm going to buy her the Lego one, and I'm going to make her build her own. So,
well, I'll tell you what, Helen, if you buy it and decide it's cluttering up your house, I'll take it off your hands for a reasonable consideration. What a nostalgic trip that was. So there we are. Let's have our final slide. Well, come on now. There's the editor's email, Steve Hart, his friendly chap. You know you want to write, don't you? You can't escape. Any volunteers? Anyone like to put their hand up now to be a scribe for our next issue?
And of course, if people haven't got enough time to do it for the next issue, there's always the issue after, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's really fun. It would be great to have some submissions for this one, but we'd really welcome them for the next one too. For sure, that's right. For sure. I thought Catherine was about to say yes, and she said thank you, but I think I'm interpreting that as yes. Amelia says she'd love to. Smith really wants to, but it may have to be the next one. That's absolutely fine. Please don't worry about that. When you can do it. Is fine by us, and we, like you said at the start, David, we really want that variety of authors. We don't want it to be just a certain set, just fellows or a certain set of people. We want this to be a journal for the sector. Yeah, fantastic. Well done. Tim's going to brilliant, Tim. Well done. And Catherine. Yes. So yeah, we've got 4 already. 5. Yes, there you go. Our job here is done, David. I told you. There you go. Yes. Nothing like twisting arms, is there, to get a willing volunteer. Nigel. When the tide turns and sun shines, there may be. I think that's his start of his. I think that's the start of his article. He's already got it ready there, hasn't it? It is. It's a great opening line, isn't it? It is, definitely. Yes. I'm sure it's the first line of a song, isn't it? It may be. It may be. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, David. I would say to everyone, as we said earlier, this is going to be shared via the YouTube channel, so you can go back in your own time and sort of reflect and revisit it, because there's lots of really, really interesting and useful advice in there. So please do use it as a resource. It will be, I hope to have the recording available from this afternoon. So yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you very much to everyone. Very much. Big applause for Helen, everybody. Applause for Helen, who makes it possible. You're too kind. I would just like to say as well, in the recording, just for the recording as well, if someone heard a couple of sighs at points that it sounded like it was coming from me, my 8-month-old puppy is in the room, and he lay down right next to the laptop and did a big sigh. It was not me. I was not bored at any point. It's been really good. Amelia's saying thank you, Helen and David. You're very welcome, Amelia and Stevie. And Miriam, lots now. There's too many. It's been fun. Thanks. And they always are when you join us, David. And they always are fun sessions and engaging, and we all learn lots. So thank you, everyone. As you know, these are weekly events, so we will be back with a Live Learn Lunch next week. We always have all of our Live Learn Lunches scheduled via our website, so you can visit that. And also the Learning Network e-bulletin comes out every Wednesday morning, so you can pop back into that. You should have it in your inbox, and you can pop back in and register for our future session. So thank you. And Nigel, thank you very much for saying enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Miriam says, watch some of David's webinars, so have been looking forward to this and didn't disappoint. I told you, David, you're always a firm favourite, which is why I always snap you up. The good news, everybody, is we've not settled on the date yet, but David has promised to do 3 more sessions for me throughout the year, so keep an eye out for those in your Learning Network bulletins, because they're
a complete bargain, aren't they? At free.
Exactly. Wonderful. And Suzanne says thank you. Brilliant. Well, thank you all today, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. As Nigel said, enjoy the rest of your week. And we look forward to seeing you at the next IEP Live Learn Lunch.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm flattered and very pleased that you're able to be here. It's very kind of you to give up your lunch. Cheers.